Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show featuring one of my favorite people, Joy Kingsborough. Welcome, Joy, to this show this week. We're so happy to have you. I apologize in advance for if there's a little wonkiness in the video audio situation because I don't have the best Wi-Fi, but you know what? The show goes on, so we're just going to go for it. I'm so excited to have you back because you were in the original Fab Five, for the gathering, and I just really enjoyed our conversation so much that I wanted to bring you back so that more people might be able to, experience you personally, and then also just experience the magic that you are bringing into the world and creating. And I'm just really excited to dive right in because you know how sometimes you guys that are listening, how the pre-show you get started talking and then you're like, wait, we got to start broadcasting this because it's just so good. So we're going to talk a little bit today about just Joy's journey for how you have really stepped into becoming a soul-centered CEO, and then also just the new body of work that you're birthing into the world. I think it is so important and so relevant. So I'd really like to just kind of focus on that during our time together today, if that's okay. Sound good? So Joy, I know that when we talked before,
sounds so good.
In the gathering, you were able to share with us a little bit about your journey for how you really created this business and this life that I feel is really the embodiment. When I think about what a soul-centered CEO is, what I believe is that you really do embody those characteristics, right? So just a deep alignment with spirit and the fullest expression of your soul, and also a heart for service. And those really are part of the elements of what this movement is about. And becoming a soul-centered CEO is really stepping into that next evolution and iteration of your life and your leadership. And so I'm so excited for you to maybe take a few minutes to share with the listeners around how you did that, right? How you got to this point and what some of the challenges maybe that you had to overcome in order to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, when we talked in our last conversation, clearly there's, and I think with everyone who comes to this place, there's a sensation that something happens in our life that is emotionally, whether it's a trauma or it's an experience of emotional hardship or physical hardship, something creates that something in us that inspires us to change. And for me, that was a series of things that accumulated into the death of my fiance. And when he died, I had given up on life and I was incredibly depressed. And if you're curious about that, I think people could go back to the previous conversation, but I would love to talk about maybe some of the things that happened after that and the energy of expansion that sort of, I feel like, took hold of me. And I didn't realize at the time what was happening, but when I began my healing process from the death of my fiance, I began falling in love with myself. I didn't know that I was doing that at the time. I was trying to lose 100 pounds. I felt overweight and uncomfortable and unhappy, and I felt really out of sync with my body and my life. I hated my job. I don't think I liked my friends. I definitely didn't like my husband. And, there was so much about my life that I didn't love. And so I was just looking for an escape, which became food, exercise. How do I get out of this body? How do I get out of this life? And I know a lot of people can resonate with that. It's like you're in these conditions, especially during these lockdowns, you're really face to face with your conditions, right? And that's how I felt. I felt really locked into my conditions. But one of the things that shifted me was coming across a book. It was just this initial information. This idea was planted. It was a book that Dr. Phil wrote. And at the time, I was learning to be my own CEO and didn't know it. Because in that book, the main message was, let's find out who you are in order to have the life you want. And I was willing to try it because I had tried everything else and it didn't work. So I was willing to say, okay, I'll give this self-love thing a try. And it really was in that shift that just by doing it and going through the motions opened me up to a level of trust with myself as I began loving myself through self-care and working with universal law. It was about the same time I started to understand universal law. I started to lose weight. And it didn't matter if I always ate well or not. It was really about the way I was feeling inside of my own skin. So I think without that moment, without that shift, I wouldn't understand the power of it. Had I lost that weight and made the connection that it was food and exercise, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I had to make the connection that it was something much deeper, much bigger than that.
Yeah. Do you often find, I mean, it's so fascinating that it started in the physical, in the physical realm, right? And I think that's very common for a lot of us. And I was just reading something just around like the levels of initiation, right? And a lot of times it has to be some kind of physical transformation, whether it be a health issue, a weight issue, something around in the physical form before then you go into these next layers. So it's just really interesting that that's where your journey started as well. You know, and as I think about my own, you know, my background is in nutrition and health management, and all my degrees are in that, around that physical well-being, right? And then I worked in that field for a long time and then transitioned slowly into all these other, you know, different modalities and different levels of teaching that I do now. So it's just really interesting that that's where your particular transformation and awareness began. And I'm sure from there, it just kind of continued to snowball, right, to different levels.
Yeah, well, it's a consciousness. So if you start to think about it, you have a mental consciousness of the physical space. And in order to understand there's another consciousness, you've got to be awakened out of it.
Yeah.
So you come to it from the consciousness you're in. If you're in the body or in the material, in a business, in building wealth or building a body or building a love relationship, all of that's really physical and it's really limited, but we don't know it until something causes us to come up against a wall or come up against one of those limits and realize that there's something beyond it. We've come up, it's like that secret wall, right?
Right, like the secret door to the garden, the magical garden.
Yes.
You know, it's interesting that it feels like that's where so much of humanity is right now, right? In the current circumstances, there's a new level of awareness, there's a new level of awakening, and a new level of consciousness that may not have been available to a lot of people before, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just such a challenging time, and I know a lot of the teachings and tools that you do now, and especially this kind of next level, this new body of work that you're birthing into the world right now, I mean, what perfect timing, right? To give people the tools and the resources that they need to navigate such a time as this, right? And I think even when we were talking before we started recording, you were talking about the idea that there's a new way of decision making, right?
Yeah.
A new way of choosing. And for those of you that are listening, I was sharing with Joy that I typically have been, you know, these last few years traveling, I've been kind of really allowing myself to surrender to spirit, like show me where I need to be, where do I need to go in the world to do the work that I need to do, where do I need to take my light, where do I need to anchor that and serve. And what I am finding now, as we do this next level of transition, right, is like you were saying, all bets are off, and now we truly have to listen to our own soul and the sovereign voice within us, right? So I'd love for you to share what you were we just started diving into that before we decided to go live, because I really think that this is important, especially if you guys are struggling with being in the space between, like being in a space between timelines and between an old way of living and being and choosing into this new way. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's really, like you said, a really incredibly powerful time because we're coming up against the limits of our own world. We're coming up not just the limits of our own personal things, but what the world has to offer from this paradigm. We've hit the wall. And it's a frequency that we've been living in, a consciousness and intelligence that we've been living in. And it's an intelligence of duality within the polarity of our dynamic, but it's a duality, which means there's been a sense of a guiding force of separation. And in that guiding force of separation, there's always a better than and a less than. That's just the nature of it. It's the nature of this consciousness. And so we've always had a parent or a role model or an authority figure or an almighty guiding being or a universe that tells us what to do next.
Yeah.
It's part of the structure of it. And yet, as we awaken to the power inside of us through so many beautiful modalities, namely meditation. Like so many people are tuning in, you meditate, you do different techniques, you're doing activations, there's these things that you're bringing into your world and you're opening up to, maybe doing a little oracle reading now and again. And as you open that up, you start to see the crack in that wall. Yeah. Oh, there's something more. And I'm part of it. I'm not separate from it. What does that mean? So according to the Maya in 2000, not just the Maya, actually the Vikings, the Maya, the Aztecs, so many cultures, about 2011, there was a shift. And that shift was an introduction to a frequency of intelligence, a consciousness. And that consciousness was unity, right? So this unity consciousness comes in and says, yeah, you're a part of that voice that's been talking to you. You're not separate from it. And so in that comes the dilemma, comes the challenge we're facing is we don't want to be told what to do, but we sort of like being told what to do, right? There's some peace in that. There's some peace in move here, go there, do that. That's where it'll be the best, having that leverage, right? But the unity consciousness says, oh no, we're waiting for you to decide because we're in this together. Yeah. So what do you want? And are you willing to determine what you want and know that you can do anything from anywhere? You can do anything from any idea as long as you're willing to believe and commit to it. Mm-hmm. So that's the big shift we're having is we're no longer being parented. We are stepping up and we're all becoming our own sacred CEO. Right? It's no longer some people. It's all of us.
Everybody. And I think the two words that you just said that resonate with me so much are willingness and commitment, right? Those have been showing up a lot in just client conversations and personal conversations. It's the willingness to step into a whole new way of being and living and loving and leading, right? Like all the things, being willing. And then also the fierce commitment to the desires of our hearts, right?
Yeah.
Being really clear on what we want and being committed, absolute commitment with certainty and confidence that what is meant for us will never miss us. And we are on the way to receiving everything that we desire. We just have to stay the course. And that's what you mentioned earlier is just really staying fully committed to the vision and fiercely committed, right? So, and not letting things distract us or discourage us, you know?
Yeah, because nothing less than that willingness and commitment will get us there.
Okay, let's just pause and breathe that in. Nothing less than full willingness and commitment will get us there. Yeah.
It's no halfway. If you think about it as like a stream, if there's a stream in between these two consciousnesses, which is there's a space between them. Yeah. There's like this idea and that idea, and just imagine a stream in between them. And the only way across is to jump.
Yep.
You can't kind of jump.
You gotta
go all in. There is no in between. And I think that's where the fear is. Oh my gosh, what if I can't do it? What if I leap and then I don't make it to the other side? But the thing is, because of the way that the universe is designed, the moment you leap, the universe carries you there because we're connected there. The stream is just, that space is an illusion.
Right.
But the jump isn't. The willingness and the commitment has to be fully there. And then the universe will carry you.
Right. I'm hoping that several of you guys that are listening, either live or on the replay, joining us, have had that kind of experience. I mean, I know I have, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as I have been brave enough to step into the bigger vision, the highest possible version of myself in my life, even though it was scary, right? Stepping
Right.
out of the comfort zone, the paycheck, the stability, or whatever it is, right? The relationship, to do life differently. It is extraordinary how much ease and grace followed, because I was willing to step into and be brave and do something differently, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that if you guys that are listening can take anything away from this, is that simple single point of what is the thing that you've always dreamt of doing or being or having, right? Or creating. And how can you give yourself permission today to take at least one step, even if it's not sell the farm and move away, like do all the things. Like, to me, even if it's just taking one step, I've always seen that the universe then meets me where I am and allows me to have much more ease and peace taking the next step and the next one. Do you agree? Like, that's, in my life, I've always seen that happen.
Absolutely. And so you can take that willingness and commitment to go, I'm all in with this step.
Yeah.
Not, I'm going to only do this step if it pays off and I get feedback and approval and attention and whatever the things are. I'm going to do the step and I'm going to be all in with that.
Yeah.
That's how we get there.
And I think that point of seeking outside of ourselves. So to me, for my own evolution and growth, like the moment that I shifted out of external validation for appreciation, approval, acceptance, anything, and I call that sovereignty. That's how kind of part of my definition of sovereignty.
Yeah.
When I truly stepped into the sovereign, the path, right, of like really owning my power and owning my voice and owning my mission and purpose, and it didn't matter anymore what anyone else thought, I also feel like that is the most beautiful experience of liberation I've ever had in my whole life. Yeah. And then once you feel that, you can never go back. Like, you can't go back, right? So, and for any of you guys that are listening that are still struggling, like in that struggle of, but what are they going to think? Or what are they going to say? Or what if, or I need acceptance or approval or appreciation from anyone. I would say the more you can shift into, again, that sovereign divinity and make choices from a place of absolute alignment, it's extraordinary, I think, how much more exciting things are, how much less energy you waste,
right,
and how much more excited and expansive the journey becomes. Would you agree? Like that,
absolutely.
that cross point, right?
Yeah, it's, when you're in that place of struggle, there's a focus on the resistance. And yet I think something that you've done really beautifully in your life and something that I've embodied is having just enough belief coupled with faith. Yeah. So I believe in myself just enough to then also have a little leap of faith of maybe I could believe a little bit more than this, and maybe I could do it. And then it's like you leapfrog from one leap of faith to the next.
Yeah. And it's like a muscle almost, because then you get better at it. And then you're like, wow, okay, that worked. So maybe I can do a little bit bigger or a little bit more or a little bit more expansion. Right. And I think right now in this moment, what I feel is that what has taken maybe you and I, 15 years, I would say 15, 20 years, maybe more, to get here in this present moment in our life's work and our mission and vision and our voice, there is a quantum leap available for people that maybe have not been on this journey that long, and they're going to just like zip right through, right? Yes. I call it consolidated suffering, right? Yes. So where we had to go through all of this stuff, and there's a lot of people that have been on this journey for a long time to step into this kind of soul-centered CEO, the truth, right? The deepest roots of the truth of who we are, why we're here, what we're doing. I think there's so many that are going to just almost like leap into the highest possible timeline, ideally, with limited suffering, right? They don't have to go through as much pain and sadness maybe to get to their own version of being a soul-centered CEO. Do you feel that as well? Like,
Yeah, well, and I'm not sure that it's about being less, but they'll spend less time in it.
yes,
So where
that's what I
we
think.
spent a long time
Yeah,
playing with it and watching it and looking at it from every angle and talking to everyone about it and
yes,
doing all the things, they're going to be able to see it and go, wow, that was really painful. And we now have streamlined the exit
right.
through all that work.
Yes. And
Yeah.
a choice, there's, it feels like the choices are um, clearer, I guess.
Yeah.
The path is
Yeah.
clearer, you know?
I agree with that.
Really good.
Yeah.
I think it's so fascinating too that, you know, you and I have talked about how it's taken all of these different paths and routes and so on and so forth to kind of lead us where we are, right? I know in my own life and work, it's like I can look back now and think, oh, no wonder I had to get all of those certifications or all of those teachings or had to go on all those things because I needed to, all of that in my toolkit to kind of get here to birth the work that I'm meant to do in the world in this present moment. I had to go
Yeah.
through all of that to get here. I feel like you have also taken a winding road and path to get to the point where now you are really, this feels like the fullest expression, the highest possible vision and timeline for yourself and your teaching, and you're creating something that will truly help people step from one entire life experience into a whole new one. So
Yeah.
I would love for you to kind of share with us a little bit more about what that is, what it looks like, what the mind shift concept is, and how you kind of got to where you are, and what your vision is for this work in the world.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really passionate about it at a level that I don't think I've ever had in my work. And I think it's because it's so personally fulfilling in the sense that because of that winding road, I did a lot of different modalities and things. I did the same thing. I collected nutritional certificates and degrees in psychology and all of these things trying to understand
Yeah.
how does the universe think? How is this place built? Where do we live? That was always this guiding understanding that I was craving, was if I could just understand how it was created or why. At first I thought it was why, now it's how. And then I can really leverage that. So the seeking of that led me to immerse in quantum physics and mathematics and numerology and um, quantum physics. If I did, well, quantum physics has been massively impactful. Biology, cosmology, ancient history. What have we been doing? What have we known? What have we learned? What are the trends? I went to a place of complication, which I think is what we've done. We've complicated this leap of consciousness because we had to. We had to like pull it all out of our closet, right? And see it all. And then when I had it all out, I went, oh, you, and you are the themes.
Right.
And the themes were how we're thinking is limited and it needs to be limitless.
Yeah.
Because the universe doesn't think limited. It's not trying to contract. It's trying to expand all the time.
Right.
We need to be able to utilize our body state, which is an energetic field of power.
Yeah.
That's the other theme. Do we know how to use that power in an effective way to take our limitless thinking and create our experience just like the universe did? It took intention, bursts of energy, and creation.
Yeah.
And then do we understand the perfection of the space we have to create in, which is the universal law? What is the quantum field? How does it operate? What are the pieces in place that support the expansion so that as creators, we are absolutely safe. Not only are we safe, we are supported in all that we want. And when we understand that from a really basic mathematical level, it all gets really simple.
Yeah.
So that's mind shift. It's those three pieces come together in a 6-month immersion where we learn to be, do, and think that. So that we can create with and make decisions without hesitation.
Yeah. And what a beautiful shift, or literally mind shift, for how we have been taught
Yeah.
and trained to think and behave and believe, you know, like it truly is an evolutionary concept, what you're creating, because our whole lives, you know, we're designed, and the word indoctrinated is coming. It's like, we think we're educated, but truly we're actually, it's almost like an indoctrination of, this is how you're supposed to show up. This is the path that you're supposed to take. These are the choices that you're supposed to make. This is what's available to you. Like, those are all very real teachings that we've all been grown up with. And so what you're doing is really, it's almost like you're opening up the can of worms. Like, remember it, I don't know, that whatever that little thing is, that it sticks in there and then you open it and it pops out.
And it goes everywhere. Yeah.
But it's like that, because what you're doing is you're saying, oh no, it's limitless possibility, you know?
And not lip service to limitlessness, because doctrination is the exact right word. We are raised to believe that we need to find our limits. We need to find our brokenness. Right? That we need to heal everything, that will never be enough, that we are limited by something or someone that wants us to behave. So all of that creates a closed thinking that we don't, even when you're an open thinker, it creates just this environment that is closed. And we don't even see it. Most people don't even see that they think limited when they want to be limitless. And that's it. It is opening this up and saying, did you know that there's this whole other way? And
doing life.
I just popped into this other way, and it has blown my own mind wide open, which is what I wanted my whole life. And then so here I'm so grateful. And then as I've taken other people, some of my private clients, I've taken them through this opening, and it's shifted their life very, very rapidly. It's that streamlined, immediate approach.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. Like, if you think about that, you can truly create whatever you desire, right? Like, and like what we were talking about before we started recording, is that, so I can be really anywhere. I mean, not in the world right now, but in the US, right? And for me to be able to have that much freedom, it's a little overwhelming, because then it's like, wait, well, then where do I go? Right. And it's really giving myself permission to decide what's the most beautiful and expansive and amazing experience that I could have in this now moment. What is that? And then allow myself to create exactly what it is that I desire. Like, that is, like you said, there's no parents on the playground anymore. No teachers telling us what to do. Right. And I think as we step into this new way of living and leading, as we continue to grow this soul-centered CEO community, right? It's just very exciting to think that there are other people that will be thinking that way as well, right? Because I think when we stay in a silo or we're by ourselves, like, I can think about, oh, well, this would be so cool to create this, or maybe I'll do this. But when we're all together in community and connected, it's like where two or more are gathered, right? Like, it's expansion. It's beyond the beyond, because what I might think of for myself, we might be able to share, and it might go to the next level, to the next level, the next level. That's what I have experienced spending time with you, and then other people that kind of have the same thought process. So I'm excited for, you know, what we're creating as a community for this soul-centered CEO. I'm so excited for the work that you're doing with Mindshift. And for any of you that are listening that would like to get more information about the program, to get a little more details, I'll have a link here at the top of the video for you to dive in to get more information for how you can work with Joy in this massive evolutionary body of work that she's creating. So it's always such a pleasure to have you. I mean, I could talk to you all day, but I know that I need to be respectful of like the window of time that people can dive into content. But it was such a pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited for just what's happening, what's unfolding for you personally, and for all of those that are going to be able to be blessed by the work that you're doing in the world. So thank you so much again. And then for those of you that are listening, feel free to check out the details. I'll also drop another link for how you can step into the Soul Student CEO community moving forward. And we're just excited to be in this and in it, like we're in it, and in it to win it, right? And it's very exciting. So thank you for all of you listening. And Joy, thank you so much for your time today. Such a blessing.
Thank you.